Well, first time the Times tried to recruit me, Jack Rosenthal brought me to the Harvard Club. And I remember he said, you have to have the sushi. And I was thinking, it just seems so incongruous. So I had the sushi. It was great. But I turned down the job. Thank God Hal Raines came back a year later, and I came to my senses. It's a great honor to be asked to give this address this afternoon, and I appreciate it. Thank you, Liz Rowan. Congratulations, Chancellor Klein, one of the few public officials I still get along with. They return my calls, but boy, very often you don't want to hear what they have to say. I thought it was interesting that Derek Bell said Barack Obama had not taken any courses with him, which might account for yesterday's election debacle. I've been thinking about John F. Kennedy lately. I can't believe it's been 50 years since that 1960 election. And Ted Sorensen, who I had come to know, just died. So that had me thinking about the Kennedy years even more. And in that 1960 campaign, as at least some of you must remember, Jack Kennedy traveled the country again and again, saying in that Boston accent of his, "We can do better." Well, if that was an appropriate comment at the time, it's even more appropriate now. Our nation is in trouble, and no cracks, please, about that election yesterday. It was really serious business, and thank God I'm not here to talk about that. We were in deep trouble even before the voters went to the polls and swept out a crop of ineffectual Democrats, only to replace them with a fresh crop of outlandish and in some cases downright scary Republicans. No, we're in trouble because the world leadership qualities of the United States, once so prevalent, are fading faster than the polar ice caps in this era of global warming. We once set the standard for industrial might, for the advanced state of our physical infrastructure, and for the quality of our citizens' lives. All are experiencing significant decline. We are doing especially poorly when it comes to intellectual achievement. For such an allegedly advanced society, we are proving in many ways to be a hapless and gruesomely ignorant one. I wrote a column several years ago that carried the headline, "A Nation of Nitwits." A poll had shown that 60% of Americans were unable to name the president who had ordered the nuclear attack on Japan. 35% did not know that the first atomic bomb had been dropped on Hiroshima. 22% knew virtually nothing at all about an atomic bomb attack. They didn't know where or even if such an attack had occurred. One of the most popular movies at the time that I wrote that column was appropriately Dumb and Dumber. Not much has improved since then. We are often blatantly hostile to intellectual achievement in this country, while embracing foolishness in all of its many forms. One of the most popular Halloween costumes this year was Snooky of Jersey Shore fame. You should really see that show at least once. It would be instructive. Jersey Shore is one of the worst examples of public entertainment that has ever been conceived. And I take particular offense, having grown up in New Jersey. At a time when a college education is needed more than ever to establish and maintain a middle-class standard of living, America's young people are moving in exactly the wrong direction. The College Board tells us that the United States, once the world's leader in the percentage of young people with college degrees, has fallen to 12th among the top 36 industrial nations. It's no longer sufficient to say we can do better. We have to do better. We've got all kinds of enormously difficult problems screaming at us for attention. We don't just need public officials who are well educated and well informed, and right now we've even got a problem with that. We also need a well-educated, well-informed electorate that has some idea of what we should be doing about the legions of jobless Americans, about our deteriorating public schools, the long and debilitating wars in Afghanistan and Iraq, rising poverty rates and scandalous economic inequality, the corporate stranglehold on government affairs, the extreme commercialization of the arts, the deficits. We need a tremendous amount of brain power if we're ever going to deal adequately with these challenges. The problem is that today's young Americans are not coming close to acquiring the education and training needed to carry out that mission. They're not even in the ballpark. In the key demographic group, young people 25 to 34 years old with a college degree, the U.S. ranks behind Canada, South Korea, Russia, Japan, New Zealand, Ireland, Norway, Israel, France, Belgium, and Australia. That is beyond pathetic. I'd like to believe that JFK would be apoplectic. I spoke with Gaston Caperton, the head of the College Board and a former governor of West Virginia, about these findings. He said to me, "When I was in school, we were #1 in the world in college graduations. When I was governor, we were 3rd, and I was surprised by that drop. Now we're 12th at a time when a good education is critically important to getting a decent job. Despite all the talk about the race to the top and charter schools and waiting for Superman, these are gloomy times for American education. A child drops out of high school every 26 seconds. And as incredible as it seems, the report from the College Board tells us that it is expected that the educational level of the younger generation of Americans will not approach their parents' level of education." In other words, we're going backwards. And that should tell you all you need to know about the state of the American dream. There are 2 reasons I'm here today. The first is because of the enormous respect that I have for Liz Rowan. If she asks you to show up, you should show up. But the other is because Teaching Matters is onto something very important in the context of what is happening in our nation right now. What I love about Teaching Matters is that it dares to set the bar high rather than so low that you could crawl over it. We've been setting the bar far too low in so many different areas, from the quality of our public officials and political candidates, to the teachers we allow to take up space in some of our classrooms, to the quality of the entertainment that we see on television and in the movies and in the theater and elsewhere. Teaching Matters tells us that it is not enough to simply get our young people to read and do computational math. It's not even close to enough in this day and age. It never was enough in my family. Oh, trust me. I remember many years ago in the 4th grade in parochial school in Montclair, New Jersey, I came home with my grades from the first time I'd ever taken exams. I showed my report card to my dad, 400s, a 98, and a 96. He studied the report card for a few moments, then said, not in a mean way, but in a way that I obviously remember after all these decades, he said, "You just couldn't get those other 200s, could you?" The bar in my family was set really high. That's what I'm reminded of when I think about Teaching Matters. This is a program that wants to maximize the benefits to be drawn from technology as part of an overall effort to bring the very best education possible to our children. I was immediately impressed when I was first told about this group's emphasis on writing You don't have to sell me, a newspaper columnist, on the critical importance of writing as part of a well-rounded education. There is so much that our children need. They have to be computer literate. They have to be able to speak fluently. They have to be able to write, to think critically, to be creative. They have to do so much more than just read, add, and subtract. But when I travel the country doing stories about the real lives of real people, I find a general situation that is getting gloomier and gloomier, and education is a big part of that gloomy picture. We talk about how essential it is to get bad teachers out of the classroom, and I couldn't agree more. But even as that becomes a heated topic of conversation, it turns out that we're firing teachers by the scores of thousands, not because they're incompetent, but because state and municipal budgets are hemorrhaging. The public schools in Hawaii were actually closed 17 Fridays in the 2009-2010 school year for budgetary reasons. Similar sad stories are coming out of school districts across the country. California has cut billions of dollars from its education system, including its renowned network of public colleges and universities. The chief of the Natomas Unified School District in Sacramento County described a state of affairs that ought to be seen as an abomination in the United States in this day and age, but which tragically is becoming ever more common. This is what he said. We made the decision to close our 8 elementary school libraries with a heavy heart. But our budget situation is so dire that we had no choice. We've also cut all of our health aides, eliminated busing, shortened our school year by 5 days, increased K-3 class sizes to 30-to-1, and issued layoff notices to about 30% of our teachers, classified staff, and administration. That tells me that the grown-ups don't care much about the students in that school district. We've got trillions for the endless wars in Afghanistan and Iraq, but we're closing school libraries and shortening the school year. Somebody ought to recognize that there is something really gravely wrong with that. The Associated Press was blunt in its reporting on this matter, saying, this is a quote, "As the school budget crisis deepens, administrators across the nation have started to view school libraries as luxuries that can be axed rather than places where kids learn to love reading and do research." When you start dismantling the public schools and driving teachers from the classrooms and closing libraries, you damage, and in many cases you cripple, the lifetime prospects of untold numbers of pupils. You leave them behind and you lose them. And to my mind, in the United States of America, the richest country in the history of the planet, that is unconscionable. We can't even keep the school buildings in decent shape. To take just one quick egregious example, a section of the Maytown Elementary School in rural Maytown, Pennsylvania was built in the late 1920s. There's a time clock in the ancient gym that was donated by the class of 1946. In that school, teachers can't mount smart boards in their classrooms because of asbestos encased in the walls. I was told that the asbestos was not dangerous as long as the walls are not disturbed. The electricity in the schools is not reliable. A teacher who is using, say, an overhead projector has to make sure that other teachers are not using similar devices at the same time, as that might cause an outage. When I was typing that, it was Freudian, it must have been Freudian, I typed outrage instead of outage. There is no air conditioning in that school, and there is no money to replace this decrepit school itself. So we need to start setting the bar higher in a lot of places. We need to reimagine the entire system of American public education. We need a wholesale transformation of this system from the broken down post-war model of the past 50 or 60 years. which is so clearly inadequate, that model, to the demands of our 21st century world. I spent a little time in North Carolina last year with Bill and Melinda Gates, who are investing billions of dollars and a lot of their energy in an effort to spark not just change, but a transformation in the way American youngsters are educated. Their efforts so far have yielded mixed results, but their focus on education is hardly misplaced. As Bill Gates told me, our performance at every level, primary and secondary school achievement, high school graduation, college entry, college completion, is dropping against the rest of the world. This has serious consequences, rather neatly summed up by Melinda Gates. As she put it, America's long history of upward mobility is in danger. The education issues that we face in this country are really tough, and they can be maddeningly complex. The ethnic groups with the worst outcomes in school are African Americans and Hispanics. As you well know, the achievement gaps between these groups and their white and Asian American peers are already large in kindergarten and only grow in many cases as the school years pass. These are the youngsters least ready right now to travel the 21st century road to a successful life. But these are also the youngsters who so often live and go to school in poorer districts that are taking the brunt of the budget cuts and other setbacks associated with this dismal economy. And there are many districts in which a good portion of the population is aging and predominantly white, and taxpayers are less than enthusiastic about supporting a public school population that is largely poor and Black or Hispanic. All of our challenges have to be overcome, and they can be if we can find the will. Teaching Matters is doing its part, and one of the most important things to take away from its successful, creative, groundbreaking work is that this kind of progress in educating our youngsters can in fact be made. It's doable. I can't tell you how important it is to get the word out that we can make the kind of progress that we need to make, because otherwise people get discouraged and they don't even want to try. We can take that same hopeful message about these things being achievable from the many successful schools serving students who come out of difficult circumstances, whether they are charter schools or really well-run public schools, and Teaching Matters knows something about that as well. It's doable. But we have to bring many, many more people into this effort, because there are so many more children who are not yet getting the benefits of a decent education. I'd like to think that events like this one here today, where the message goes forth in a sane and constructive and cooperative way, brings us a little bit closer to our long-term goal of a system that provides a first-class, well-rounded education to all of America's young people. It's not just their futures, but the future of our society that is at stake. The future of the very idea of America as we've come to know it, an idea that most of us have come to cherish. JFK said, "A child miseducated is a child lost." We might say the same thing about a country. Thank you very much.